And welcome back to another episode of the Consistency Engine podcast. Like always, I'm Dane Patton with my good buddy
Chase Collier.
Yes. Do you like to say your own name, or do you like me to say your name, Chase?
They both sound good. I feel like if I say it, I need more to say than just my name.
Yeah. So how have you been? What's been going on in your life here lately?
I always say moving and shaking. There's always new things that come up, new opportunities, new challenges, good, bad, ugly, all the fun stuff in business.
Well, last week you had a really busy week. Had a lot of events going on, and
yes,
just out there.
Had 2 speaking events last week. One to a smaller group, and then the other one was 150-person event, 180, something like that.
Yeah.
Didn't speak a ton since we had a lot of video stuff to watch, but it was a great event. Just got told today I'm also going to speak on a stage in Omaha in June.
Awesome.
So starting to line some more stuff up.
Awesome. That's exciting. Definitely. And you know, anytime that you get asked to speak or I get asked to speak, the one thing that really gets me more excited about is the impact that we're going to be able to have and bring. And I was listening to a podcast recently, and they were talking about kind of the progression of a man and that you know, in his life and finding his purpose and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good podcast. It was a Huberman podcast. I don't know if you ever listened to
his stuff is great.
Yeah, it was good. And actually Dr. Troy shared that with me, and it was good. I really enjoy. I'm not completely. He does like 2 almost 3 hour long podcasts, so it takes me a couple days to listen to something like that. But it had some really good information in it, and it was just kind of talking about how, you know, you get to certain levels in your life, and really you just want to become of service to other people. You know, maybe at the beginning of your journey, you're trying to make money, and maybe you're working hourly and you're trading your time for money, and you're trying to build some wealth, and then maybe you start a business, or maybe you go up the ladder in your corporate job and stuff like that, and then you just want to be about, you know, serving other people, and it gets to a point where hopefully you've created enough wealth for yourself that you don't have to worry or think about that stuff. And it's like, how do I share my knowledge? How do I share my experiences so I can help impact more people? But to get to that point, I think that you have to know the value of your time, and you have to know your worth. And that's kind of one thing that we want to talk about today is understanding what that is, and maybe just understanding. I mean, we've got the numbers and the spreadsheet guy here of maybe putting it on paper and figuring out what actually your time is worth to you.
Yes. Great intro, Dane. The point of money being important, that's part of what I talk about in my journey, is when people are like, well, what do you want to do next? And I say, I want to impact people. I want to give my knowledge. And I will say, in the beginning, when I got into real estate and we had our sports bar during COVID and finances were tight, like I just wanted to get into real estate, make a ton of money. And it turned so much into, I learned a lot in a short amount of time, and now I don't want other people to make the mistakes that I made, because it cost me time and money. So the more stages either of us can be on, the more podcasts, the more books we can write, the more we're able to impact people. And understanding your worth, the topic of today's episode, it's so important, because if you don't know your worth, you don't know where to allocate your time to. In some of our other episodes, we've talked about delegating. We've talked about just doing things that are benefiting us, and trying to bring all the thoughts together and hand off the stuff that we aren't experts in, hand that stuff to the subject matter experts who can do it better and more efficiently than us. And part of that is understanding your worth. To me, there's kind of 2 different sides of the coin. I will ask everybody, do you know what your time is worth? Is a good way to start that. But number one, I like to look at net worth. I think that's a great thing just as a benchmark. To me, money is more of a scoreboard than anything. There's people that don't have a ton of money that live some of the most fulfilling lives because they love what they do. And there's people that we both know that have so much money and they don't live a happy life because they choose not to. Their emotions take over, ego, greed, there's a list of things. But I also think that looking at and understanding your net worth is a good baseline so you can understand your growth through time. But on the other hand, what is your time worth? What is an hour of your day worth? And when I started in business and building businesses and started having multiple income streams, it's not just an hourly wage anymore. In corporate, you're earning what you're earning and you're only earning it while you're clocked in or on your 40-hour salary job. As a business owner, I like to almost look at things of an 8-hour day as well as 24/7. And I personally look at both of those numbers. If this is what I made this year, how much am I making 24 hours a day, 7 days a week per hour? And how much am I making if it's just over a 40-hour work week? And based off of those decisions, like, lets you figure out what you should do with your time. Should you delegate things? In a prior episode, Dane and I talked about hiring out someone to mow your yard. Even if you enjoy mowing your yard, but as a business owner, your time's worth $100 or $200 an hour, why are you spending 2 hours mowing the yard when someone will do it for $50 or $60? And that decision making should be kind of throughout your life in different scenarios. Growing up, I was not a big person on eating out a lot, going to fast food restaurants, because in high school and college, like, I saved about everything I could. And now I got to the point that I'm like, well, going to Chipotle is cheaper than a drink at a bar. And I don't drink and I would rather have Chipotle, but it's $9 at Chipotle saves me how much time at home not having to cook food. And it's not an everyday thing, but some of that decision-making process should be based off of your worth.
Yeah. And I love this conversation. And it really hits home to me too, because I think about a lot of stuff when we talk about time. Especially in my situation where I've got 3 kids. We both have wives. We both have families that we love and we care about, and we want to provide and we want to protect, and we want to just give them everything that we can. And so I think about time a little bit differently, because a few years ago there was a stat that I read, and it really changed the game for me. And if you haven't heard this, I think it's definitely something important to help you put into perspective. And it said that the amount of time that you spend with your kids or your child is 75% of it is over by the time they turn 16.
Wow.
And at the time that I heard this, I had my oldest son. He was about 18, and then it went further, and it said 90% of the time that you get to spend with your kid is over by the age of 18. And like, that stopped me in my tracks, because I think Charlie was probably 17 or 18 at the time that I heard this. And I just couldn't, like, at first it was kind of disbelief. Like, well, this is crazy. But then I just started thinking about it more, and I started thinking about it in my experience and in my life, and, moving out at 18, and then having my own son at 19, and then moving away from my family at 20 years old, and then my parents moving away, in the last 6 years, and just the amount of time that I spent with my family after I left the house. And we're spending, minutes and hours, not days and weeks anymore. And then so having a couple younger sons and my older son, and then him now moving out of the house. And so I'm like, well, the value of my time isn't necessarily a monetary thing to me, as much as as it should be. And yes, money is definitely important, because we need to be able to have shelter and have food and all that kind of stuff, and then the luxuries that we get to have and travel and all that. So important. But the time aspect and the amount of time that I have to create memories that are going to last a lifetime, that is way more valuable to me than anything else, because we never know. Like my wife's grandma just passed away. She's 96 years old. She's lived a long life, and she's lived a full life, and she's one of the most positive people that I ever met. I've only known her for 17 years, since I've known my wife, and I don't feel like that was enough time. And and in the 17 years that I got to know her, I didn't spend enough time with her that I wish that I would have. And that's not due to any other reason than just, me not taking advantage of more opportunities. And that's one thing I think is so important to share when we're talking about business and we're talking about health, is because those two things directly impact the memories that we can make and the impact that we can have with other people. The more that we can show up for ourselves and our health and be that better version of ourselves, the more impact we can make in our business, and the more revenue that we can drive, the more sales we can make, the more people that we can help, or leaders we can create to go and do that stuff too, that we buy back that time so we can use it in the places that matter the most to us.
And family should always be number one priority. The part of what we want to do is help build other people that can buy back their time as well. It's not just talking about our experiences or our stories. I want every listener on here to surpass us at some point, have bigger business, have more time, have those experiences, because we only get so much of them. And on the time aspect of things, you can't put a price tag on time. It's the one thing we don't get more of. It's a non-renewable resource. If anyone ever figure out how to make more of it, they're going to be the richest person alive. And knowing your worth, knowing your value around other people also has to make you decide, are you going to spend it with family, or are you going to go out and party with your friends? And that's one thing I did a ton of growing up, was I didn't choose to go party. I wanted to hang out with my parents, which I was a nerd in high school, and I love my parents. But on that aspect, every time I see my uncle and my parents, both of them are like, we need to see you more. And it's not that I don't give them time, because we see them about once a week. But just as you said, now it's hours. It's 2 or 3 hour chunk once a week instead of 24 hours a day.
Yeah. Well, and even when we have younger kids and they're at home, or when we were at home, we go to school, so 8 hours, or we're working while they're at school, and all that. We're not there together. That's one thing that we've talked about, my travel and my trips and stuff like that. Why it's so important to me to be able to do that stuff, because I'm buying that time back with my kid. We're always talking about getting 1% better as humans, as individuals, becoming that better version. I'm also trying to get 1% of that time back with my kids, so I can maybe start changing the dial. Instead of those 75 and 90%, I can change those in favor of me a little bit. And how do we do that? Well, when we're at work, we got to be all in at work. We've got to be focused. We've got to learn from our mistakes, and we've got to implement strategies and our SOPs and all of that stuff to make sure that when we're here, we're working hard and we're creating value for other people and impact for other people. And then we're at home, we're doing the same thing, and not just wasting away, because we've talked about it. Most people
Yes.
live the same life for 60 years and then they die. That's not what I want to see, and that's not the message that I want to share with people. That's why I am so vocal when it comes to this idea of knowing the value of your time, because most people don't. And especially, in the day of big tech and all that kind of stuff, everybody's more glued to their phones than they've ever been in the entire history of humanity. And that's stealing so much of our time from us, and we don't understand it. And I see that with my son Harvey. We got a cell phone because we don't have a landline. I mean, very few people have landlines anymore, but we have a cell phone at home, and that's just something that over time he's kind of gravitated a little bit more. And we have to remind him. We have to set these boundaries and understand. Okay, you only have a certain amount of time that you can have this phone, or that you're trying to look at YouTube or whatever. He's huge into NBA, so he knows every stat that's ever happened in the NBA, and he's getting that from his information on his phone. But we have to limit that stuff, because it's just it wants to pull them in. The video games that they create these days, all it's trying to do is trying to monetize people's time.
They're pretty much making casinos. And I don't mean that as people are gambling, but they're so enamored. When you step into a casino, there's no clocks and there's no straight paths. Everything curves around because they want you to stay there. And that's the same as every piece of technology on your phone when it comes to videos, social media. Like I have a love-hate relationship with social media, because you can just go down that rabbit hole and spend hours on it. And are you being present with the people that you're around? I can say from experience, there's days and times that I was just so in work mode that like I'm just not present at home. And my wife would be like, hey, I know we're in the same room, but can we pay attention to each other? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do that. And you just have to be cognizant of those situations when they come up, because even if you're in the same room with them and you know what you're worth, you should be having value, quality time with those people.
Yeah, and we've said plenty of times, neither one of us are perfect. So we've fallen into these traps before. Done the same thing with my wife, and we're sitting right next to each other, and we're sending each other reels back and forth. And I'm like, I get a reel from her, like, I'm sitting one cushion away from you. You could have just turned your phone and shown this to me, and I could be interacting with you, looking at this rather than me looking at it. And you just saying like,
did you just react to it with an emoji?
Well,
straight faced.
Yeah. So sometimes like there'll be like 3 or 4 that I need to look at and I haven't looked at, and then she's like, "Hey, you didn't laugh at that?" And I'm like, it's good I didn't look at it. But
one thing I wanted to add is one of the things that I did personally. This was 4 years ago. Is getting into business. One of the things I told my parents is I want more time with you. I want to be able to go on vacations with you. And we made it once a year that we would go on a vacation together. There's been years we've done 2 or 3, but I wanted to make it a point that we have that quality time together, because I know how much that is worth to them and how much it's worth to me.
Yeah. And having open communication about that too, I think is, we've talked about communication, but it's really the cornerstone foundation of everything that we want in our building is communicating that vision of what it is that we see of happening, and letting those people that matter the most, like if the people that matter the most aren't part of your vision, you probably need to do a whole new vision board exercise or something like that, because they should be the anchor of it. If they're not, if a Lamborghini is the vision that I have, and it's not about the people, well, you probably need to, because that Lamborghini is not going to fulfill you when you do get it. And you kind of talked about having people that have lower net worth being very happy, and people who have high net worth not being. And I think money really is a a magnifying glass on the person. You know, the more money that they have. I mean, if they're a jerk, they're just going to be a jerk with more money.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons I talk about it that way too, because, you know, most people that I know that have gotten really wealthy, and that was the only reason that they were trying to do it, they still aren't happy.
No, and they're never going to be.
No, it has to be more of a purpose than money. Now, if the purpose is like, you know, I want to feed, you know, 1 million children, well, great. You're going to need some capital to be able to do that. You're going to need some help. You're going to need some money somewhere. So how do we get to that point?
Yeah, feed, clothe, water kids in other nations, help sex and human trafficking. Yeah. Like there's so many things that are bigger than us that we don't even think about when we're trying to figure out what our goals look like. I've personally met some business owners that have gone on human trafficking missions to get kids and adults out of these bad situations, and they wouldn't have been able to do that without knowing their worth and having the right goals. A tangent piece I kind of want to hit on before we're done with the episode is when you interact with other people. I'm a very transparent person. Everyone knows that about me. And when we get into rooms of other people, I want to understand what people's worths are as well as their mission to be in that room. Because the more we do, the less time we have, and we need to be conscious about the people we're being around. And if everybody that knows us on social media reached out to us and they're like, hey, I want to pick your brain, that would be a lot of time to commit to that. But there are people in there that need it, that will put the action in, and you have to want to put the action in. One of my rules of thumb is I will give everybody a meeting in person here locally, and if they don't take action on the stuff we talk about, I'm not going to give them more time. Because it's not worth it to me. I want them to succeed and I want them to do well, but I can't put the action in for them. So part of that is knowing your worth.
Yeah, and you know, things like this podcast. Okay, we both take time out of our day to come together, sit here, turn on the microphones, turn on the camera, record a podcast, and have conversations in this. For nobody's paying us to do this. We're doing this to.
Not yet.
Yeah. If you are interested in sponsoring this, let us know. But you know, our time is valuable, but we're coming together to do this to hopefully provide value for somebody else and to be of service of somebody else. And I do the same thing with my calendar. Lots of people here locally know me, and even people, you know, nationally. I keep Thursdays available from 10 to 2. Open on my calendar, so we can do a Zoom meeting or we can do an in-person coffee meeting or something like that on Thursdays, just to give back and help other people. I love learning about people. I love hearing their stories. If there's some way that I can be of service and offer some sort of guidance or advice, or sometimes people just want to vent and they don't have anybody to talk to, sometimes that's fine too. But I've been able to create a life where I can do that. And the reason that I do that is because I remember when I was coming up as a business owner, and I would see people that got successful, you know, in business or in life or whatever, and then they would just kind of vanish. They would be gone, and
that's the majority.
Yeah, and I always just thought, like, you know, I really got some value from the conversations I had with this person, and then they just up and left, and they were gone. And I'm like, well, why is that? And, you know, whether they got too busy or this and that, and it's like, I always want to be able to give back to those people, because I know those people like me that I used to be. If I can be helpful to those people, I want to be able to do that. And I've talked to plenty of business owners about different things and the scalability of that kind of stuff. And yes, I know I'm not going to be able to do that forever, but I can do that for 4 hours a week and be able to hopefully help people, because I know the impact that I could possibly make is going to create a ripple effect that's way larger than me. And that's what's super important to me.
Don't say that. You can't do it forever.
Well, yeah. Well,
you and I aren't going to go ghost, and I feel like we're both going to continue to grow this side of it because we truly want to help. And if we get to be 60 and 70 years old up on stage in a hover round or wheelchair, like, we'll still be given the value.
I have a vision of me deadlifting at 85 still. So I am fully expecting. So I'm 41. So that's 44 years from now.
Yep.
Still deadlifting at 85. Now, probably not 400 pounds but if I can deadlift, my body's weight or 135 at 85, like that's a win for me. I'm still able to move and I have the strength and mobility. That's the plan.
There was a video I watched, speaking of scrolling on all the social medias, but I think he was an 82-year-old guy at the gym, and he did 24 pull-ups.
Oh, man. I think the average man can't even do, 5 pull-ups. It's some crazy stat. But I remember me not ever being able to do a pull-up, and I think I was 36 when I was like, let me see, and I started jumping up pull-ups, and I was like, holy crap, this was something my body couldn't do before, and now it can, and now I don't ever want to lose that skill. All right, well, this what's before we end here, what's a good takeaway? We can even go back to maybe something just as simple as understanding the worth of your time. Maybe you're out there and you're just an hourly employee. Maybe you're a salary employee. Maybe you're a business owner, and you think that your time might be worth more than it actually is. Probably because you don't actually know your numbers the right way. But if you need help with that, we can also help you with that too. But the simplest thing for me is take whatever your annual salary was, however much you made, divide it by how many hours you worked. Boom. That's the easiest way that I can come up with what the value of your time actually was, the monetary value of your time was.
With the monetary value of your time, just think more clearly about decisions that you're making to understand if it's worth taking time away from you being able to build something. The other piece, and it's not as much an assignment as a thought, but think about the worth that you want to have. If your worth's currently $25-$50 an hour, what does it look like to be at $100 an hour, and what needs to change in order to get there? Because if you can start perceiving stuff differently and making that more of a goal and a strategy than just a high in the sky number, you're going to go after it and achieve it.
Yeah, a good thing that I learned a while ago was think about when I went through this, the greatest version of me exercise, and I'd envision that greatest version of me, and then how does that person operate? When he walks into a room, what are the things that he's talking about or he's bringing to the table? And I started thinking about that and who I wanted to be, and what's stopping me from just doing that right now? And then acting that way and trying to be of value and be of service of other people. And because if that's the version I want to be, let's just start acting like him. Maybe I don't have the same bank account as that person yet, but there's a lot of things that I could do that person would do. And then when we get to it, great. Then I can financially be able to support more people and create more opportunities. All right. Well, that was a great episode of the Consistency Engine podcast. We are grateful for your listenership. And like always, you can reach out to us on social media. If you have any ideas of episodes that you would like us to talk about. And we're always looking for 5-star reviews.
Like, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.